This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. As we turn now to look at how a family of four, a mother and three children, were detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in a raid not far from the home of Trump's border czar, Tom Homan. The raid took place last Thursday at the North Harbor Dairy, near the town of Sackets Harbor, New York, a small town with a population of about 1,300. It's in upstate New York, in western New York. In total, 7 people were detained, including the mother and her 3 kids, who were enrolled in the local public school, a 3rd grader, a 10th grader, and an 11th grader. Witnesses say they were all handcuffed before being removed from a home at the dairy farm and put in a van. ICE has confirmed they were then taken to a recently reopened family detention center in Texas. This is Jennifer Gaffney, the superintendent of Sackets Harbor Central School District.
As part of the process of detaining the person for whom the warrant was issued, we had 3 students who got caught up in that mess and subsequently taken and detained. We are all very, very, very well connected with our students who are missing, and these students are friends, they're classmates, they're good students, and they're part of the fabric of our community, and we want them back in our classrooms.
The superintendent was interviewed by local ABC upstate. ICE agents said the mother and children were collateral arrests and that the raid on the dairy farm was related to a warrant to arrest of a South African man allegedly dealing in child pornography. This Saturday, community members are holding a rally starting at the town's Welcome Center, marching to the home of Trump border czar Tom Homan, who's a native of the area. He spoke to the local news station WWNY and said he was looking into the raid and the possibility the family could be released and returned to Sackets Harbor.
This was not, it wasn't a raid. It was a search warrant execution in a house where a family was found and who entered the country illegally. They're under docket control. So ICE is doing everything by the book. Border Patrol did everything by the book. And once the investigation gets to the place where we no longer have an interest in this family, then the decision will be made on release. So as far as Sackets Harbor, I grew up, as you know, in West Carthage, not too far from your family. I love the North Country. I want to retire in the North Country. It's unfortunate that it brings undue necessary attention to a small town that I love, small town that I'd like to retire in.
For more, we're joined by Murad, the president of the New York Immigration Coalition, helping residents as they call for ICE to release this family. Murad, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you explain what happened to this family of 4, almost next-door neighbors to Homan? The 3rd grader, the 2 high school kids and their mom were handcuffed and taken away?
Well, first, thank you for having me. It's really unfortunate to see this family who, in the dark of morning, were snatched from their beds, arrested, and then detained, and then disappeared. Similarly, we've been seeing this happen across the country, but even more so appalling that ICE figured that it was important that they arrest these children and their mother, which they had no warrant to enter their home, which they did, as well as ensuring that they not only arrested them, but they moved them over 1,800 miles away from their home and their community. So it's been incredibly heartening to see the local community of Sackets Harbor rally in support of this family and their students. But we're all calling for the same thing, which is the immediate release and return of this family back to New York.
So what are their rights? It's interesting. Homan has been so fierce in his rhetoric against immigrants, but now that people in his community, it sounds like he's beginning to back off.
Well, his community has been loud and clear. They are not in support of these warrantless arrests. They are not in support of family separation or child detainment. You have these 3 children and their mother now sitting in what is in essence a jail and a prison in Texas, and continuing to parrot these talking points as if ICE and him are in the right when we know that they're in the wrong. This family actually was going through the immigration system as they were told to, following the process and the steps that was dictated to them by the immigration court. And now, instead of waiting for their court date, they are sitting in a family detention center in Texas, awaiting their fate, which is really horrendous. And again, we're calling on their immediate release and for them to be sent back to New York.
So there's a protest for Saturday at 2 planned, and the mayor of Sackets Harbor says they're going to declare a state of emergency as they march to Homan's house.
I think that this case specifically has drawn a lot of interest and outrage from the local community as well as the surrounding areas. North Country is a beautiful part of New York State. It is hundreds of miles away from New York City, but even more so in a community of Sackets Harbor of 1,300 or so residents. They are all outraged. This is a farming community, and even the farmer who this action happened on his property is also outraged. And I think in this moment, what they are demanding is they want their kids to come back to them. These are their students. These are their friends. These are their neighbors. And they're incredibly, incredibly horrified that this happened to begin with. And I don't know if anyone can imagine a third grader being arrested or other kids being arrested simply because of, ICE wanting to meet their quota of the day.
And there wasn't a deportation order, and they were showing up at court for their various hearings.
Yes, there was no order, there was no warrant, and they were still navigating the immigration system.
I also want to ask you about New York Mayor Eric Adams, who today is making his first mayoral campaign appearance of 2025 after a federal judge dismissed his corruption case, granting a request from the Justice Department that was widely seen as a quid pro quo in exchange for Adams implementing Trump's mass deportation agenda. But the judge, Dale Ho, dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning the charges cannot be later revived, going against the wishes of the Justice Department, which sought to leave the door open for potential future prosecution, perhaps if Adams didn't do what they wanted. The judge wrote, "Everything here smacks of a bargain, dismissal of the indictment in exchange for immigration policy concessions," unquote. Earlier today, Adams announced he plans to run for re-election as an independent instead of as a Democrat. Your assessment of what's going on here, Murad?
I think this doesn't really change very much. There was obviously, as per the AUSAs who quit because they refused to dismiss these charges, that there was a quid pro quo.
When you say AUSAs, you mean assistant U.S. attorneys, one after another, conservative attorneys saying they did not want to drop the charges against the mayor.
Yeah, and that their case was based on facts. We, as myself and my organization, had never called for his resignation because he was charged, because we believe, although he doesn't believe this for our community, but we believe every single person in this country has the right to due process, including the mayor. But what transpired here was not that. We echo the sentiment of the judge in saying that there was a bargain struck here. And we don't know what that is, but the allusion that has been made through the assistant U.S. attorneys and their comments is that this is a deal that was cut to ensure that the mayor supports the Trump administration's mass deportation plan, which we are completely against, because that is nothing but actually horrifying for our families, negatively impacting our communities, and it will gut our local economy. So the mayor has a tough road ahead. I think that if he does try to collude with immigration enforcement against local law, we're going to fight tooth and nail and work with our partners in the New York City Council to ensure that we continue to defend and protect our communities.
Murad Awawdeh, before we go, I wanted to ask you, as a Palestinian American, a leader in the immigration rights community, your thoughts on what happened last night. The Jewish students and the Israeli-American student at Columbia University who chained themselves to the gates of Columbia, demanding to know who in the administration or on the Board of Trustees pointed the finger at Mahmoud Khalil, who's in prison in an immigration jail in Louisiana. A judge in New Jersey ruled his case should be held in New Jersey, dealt with in New Jersey. Not clear what's going to happen to him in Louisiana. His wife, Dr. Noor Abdullah, a dentist here in New York, is about to give birth to their first child. Your response to all that's taking place?
You know, Mahmoud Khalil was the first student who was detained by this administration and disappeared. Now there's several others who are in the same situation as him. Mahmoud Khalil was, as many people know, was a student at Columbia. And, you know, when I was on your show last discussing this, I mentioned that there was a forward report that mentioned that the Columbia institution actually, it seemed as if it was colluding with immigration enforcement, which is incredibly abhorrent. This is not something that any institution should be doing in working with immigration and customs enforcement on wrongfully detaining and removing their student. So kudos to the students continuing to protest for his release and demanding accountability in the university.